Hello, I'm Derek Campbell. I'm Scottish. Try not to hold it against me. What I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be talking about pipelines, infrastructure as code, deployments with GitHub Actions and Octopus Deploy. So, who is using GitHub Actions? Excellent, excellent. Who uses Octopus Deploy? Right, we're going to learn some stuff today then, guys, and ladies and gentlemen, sorry. So let's jump in. So we're going to talk a little bit about GitHub Actions. We'll talk about what they are. Then we'll move into Octopus Deploy. And then from there, we're going to talk about config as code, which is one of the latest features in Octopus. And then why you would use it. And then I've got two really good demos for you today, barring any hiccups. And then lastly, what we're going to do is going to have a bit of a 10-15 minutes at the end. Any questions, we can jump into it. Okay, so introducing GitHub Actions. GitHub Actions has been around now for a few years. It's pretty much the world's continuous integration server, or at least if it's not for you, it will likely be soon. It's got over 13,000 GitHub Actions, and I'll show you that a little bit later. One of the key things here with GitHub Actions is it's effectively allows you to seamlessly bring in community standards, package standards as well for Ruby, and also it's the benefit is it's attached to GitHub, right? Is there anyone in this room that's never actually heard of GitHub before? It's pretty much where the world's code lives, right? Including ours, which is really cool. And it does, native integrates with code spaces. If you're not familiar with code spaces, next time you're in GitHub, press full stop. Hello, code spaces. And what is Octopus Deploy? So Octopus Deploy is a DevOps automation platform. We started around 2012, and we now help over 25,000 companies globally. And there's a few in the room that are obviously using it as well. The main thing with Octopus is the repeatability of it. Obviously, you have a single deployment process, and what that means is you don't have to configure it multiple times. It comes with over 500 automation steps, and just our community step, our step templates actually hit 500, and on top of that, then you've got the ones that actually also come alongside Octopus. One of the benefits of Octopus is that because we are a standalone system, we have to integrate with hundreds of technologies. So you pretty much, if you're using things like Jenkins, etc., you're going to have a good time with Octopus. So what is config as code? Has anyone seen config as code in Octopus yet? It's fantastic. Genuinely, we just released it in March of this year. It's something that allows you to store your deployment alongside your application. You can actually treat it as, you can treat it exactly like your application code. So you can branch off, you can use branches as drafts, and then use your pull requests as your approval. And one of the main things is it puts the power where you want it to be. You can do things like cloning existing templates, bring it in. It's going to make Octopus a lot easier to be used. So what you're able to do is you can edit your deployment process in the UI. I will give you that I will show you that a little bit later, and also in VS Code. I actually originate from Ops. Please don't hold it against me. I'm one of the good ones. I know there is only about 7 of us, but hey, here I am. But basically what it does is it allows you to work where you work best. If you're a release manager and you want to make a quick update, you can use the UI. If you're a developer and you live in VS Code, then you can continue with that. And to be honest, if you're going to be using config as code with Octopus, then what's basically going to happen is if you're wanting that massive update, then, if you're going to do lots and lots of updates, say for instance you're doing a new deployment process that you're moving to containers, etc., and you want to do those large scale updates, then config as code, that's where you can use VS Code to do your native, you can work on the tools that actually work best for you. So for instance, with VS Code, it's really great at mass updates, search, replace, etc. And with config as code, it does use OCL. OCL stands for Octopus Configuration Language. And some of the patterns that we see with config as code is you can keep your deployment alongside your application code. You know, how many times do you get to the deployment process and you're writing the software as a developer and you don't actually know how it's deployed, right? With config as code, you can see it all in an OCL file. So again, like I was saying earlier on, you can use it with VS Code, etc. And when, you know, honestly, see if, what I find is when I want to just make a quick update, the UI really is only as a quick update. You want to do lots, VS Code is really where you want to do. So it is only available as of March this year. It has been developed for the last 2.5 years, and it's something that we're very excited about. And with that, what we tend to do is we recommend that you clone your existing project. So if you're having a little look at later on and you are an existing user, one thing, take a clone of your existing project. Why? Because it's a one-way conversion. So obviously, traditionally, your deployment process is stored in the SQL database. So with that, once you do move it, once you do convert it, it takes all of that and then it moves it up to your repository, which, let's be honest, is going to be GitHub for the most part. And also, please do test it. I don't want you to lose your job. You know, that's going to be a bad day. Okay, so just a little bit about the roadmap. Actually, Christian in the back is actually the senior engineering manager in charge. Give everybody a wave. And he's actually working. So what we do have coming is variable support and runbooks, and that's something that Christian says that will be done by the end of the year. Christian, yeah. Excellent. It's really cool. Like, to be honest, it's when you jump in, I'll show you a little bit later, and it's going to really help out. So yeah, why would you use GitHub and Octopus Deploy? GitHub Actions is going to be the world's continuous integration server. Octopus works really great with everything. So what they do is they work really, really well together. And we do have some GitHub Actions that you can do it. So these two tools really do work together very well. And don't worry, this is the talking bit's almost over. What I am going to be doing is I'm going to be jumping into the demo very, very soon. So with that, yeah, let's jump in and do some demos. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with Octopayshop. Octopayshop is a sample application that we use. It consists of 3 microservices. You've got your, sorry about that. You've got your website, you've got your shopping cart service, and your product service. I'll show you a little bit later, but in our example, dogs only cost $100. Last I checked. It's a lot more than that. I've got 3 chocolate Labradors, and I can testify to that. So what we're going to see is you're going to see some workflows. What we're going to do, I'm just going to jump straight in, and I am going to run the action. I've got a really cool demo for you today where we're going to actually deploy the infrastructure as you create the release. So I am going to run it, and then I'm going to take you through how this works. We jump into the build. We're going to run the workflow. And then I'm going to cross everything, fingers, toes, the road. Sorry, bad joke. But what I'm going to do is hopefully what this is going to do in the background, it's going to build all my software, it's going to create the release, it's going to deploy the infrastructure to Azure using Platform as a Service. And then lastly, it's going to deploy my 3 apps and my SQL database. So let's jump in and have a look at GitHub Actions. So jump back here. Who likes YAML? I have a love-hate relationship with it. I love how powerful it is, how reusable it is. The first time writing it, I believe Damien the other day was doing a workshop and starts from scratch. You're a braver man than I, Damien. You're a braver man than I. So let's actually jump in and have a look at it. There we go. So Octopayshop is a .NET application, .NET Core application. It's written in .NET 6. As you can see here on screen, we're starting with a pull request. So obviously you've got the name, and then from here, what you can see is it's going to be running on an agent, much like anything else. With GitHub Actions, you've got Windows runners, Linux runners, Mac OS X runners, all of the runners. And then what we're going to do in the next step is we're setting up .NET. We're then going to install dependencies. We're going to do the .NET restore. We're going to build it using the release configuration. Then we're going to do some tests. Always run your tests. Always, please test your code. Please test your code. I know this is, not real world, but please do it. So at this point, in this instance, folders and where artifacts go have always been something that confused me. You build your code, where did it go? I don't know. Oh, okay. So what I do is I'm creating the directories and actually restoring everything. So as you can see, we've got the database, the website, and then the product service, and then lastly, the shopping cart service. Next, we're publishing, as you can see. We're then going to publish the database into the preset folders. And then the next few steps, we're actually using the CLI. So Octopus does have 4 GitHub Actions that you can use. You've got the CLI. You can actually run a runbook. We'll talk about runbooks in a moment, and a few others. Actually, let's jump in and have a look. Because every time I do this talk, the number you see up there, 13,823, has went up by at least a few hundred. Sometimes there might be 1,000 of them. So at the moment, GitHub Actions is absolutely huge. It's blown up. You get some really good stuff in there. If you're not playing with GitHub Actions, I would highly recommend it. Some really great resources. I also know some of the advocates that, apparently they do some really good presentations as well. Damien. So yeah. Okay, so what you see here is Octopus does have its own ones. Oh. So there you go. You've got your CLI, you've got the runbook, you've got the push package, and then create release. I know that we are working on some new ones as well, and they should be out soon. Okay, so at this point, we're then going to push the package, and what you do is you use secrets here. So in this instance, as you can see on screen, with the syntax, you've got the Octopus server API key, the server URL, and the space. So you can come on in, you come over to settings, and then to secrets, and there they are. I can't show you my super secrets. So yeah. What we've got this, in this instance, the API key is a service account that I use. Never use your own API key for that. That's, you're going to have a good time with that. And then you've got the server URL, which in this instance is webinar.octopus.app. And then lastly, the space, which is config as code. So at this point, I'm hoping I've spoken long enough that things have kicked off. So let's jump in. Let's just have a quick look at the build. There we go. Okay, so there we go. We've ran the setup. It's checked out the action to check out has ran. You've set the version. We've set up .NET 6. We've installed the dependencies. We've ran the build, the test. We've created the artifacts folder. We've published all our artifacts. We've then zipped them up, and then we've passed them over to Octopus. Okay, so let's jump into Octopus Deploy. Yes, so we actually have a running deployment. So what you're seeing on screen is Octopayshop. So down the left-hand side, these tend to be, this is projects. Projects tend to be things that are shipped together at the same time. So let's just jump in and have a look at Octopayshop. Okay. This is actually something, in the deployment process, this is actually something that's very unique about Octopus. You set up your deployment process once, and you're able to reuse it over and over. What I'm actually doing, and this is something I'm quite passionate about, testing nowadays, obviously, all your infrastructure, you can use infrastructure as code using ARM templates, Terraform, Pulumi, whatever you're really using for infrastructure as code. I'm actually running a runbook. Runbooks are things that are your operations tasks, things like deploying infrastructure as code, your emergency routine, things like managing your databases, doing backups, doing restores, building out everything in AWS, Azure, wherever you're hosting things. So at this point, it's going to run a runbook within your deployment process, And I'm a big fan of this. The main reason is, if you test infrastructure costs quite a lot of money. One of the things that you can do is spin up test what you need to do. You actually I find that you get a much better accurate, there's less false negatives, false positives. And one of the things that you can do is spin it up and then tear it down. If you actually do that and you're only maybe testing for 10, 15 minutes, instead of paying for your testing for all year round, you can save 95 to 98% of your testing, depending on how often you're testing, of course. And it also means that you don't have to you don't have to spin it up every time. Okay, so what we've got here, so the first few steps is creating the infrastructure. Of course, this is only for tests. You probably don't want to do this for production every time, or at least you're using things like blue-green deployments, etc. Then yes, you definitely want to do that every time. So the next bit is we've got a manual intervention. That's one of my favourite steps because it's like there's always somebody who has to approve your deployments. If you can just push everything straight to production, do it. The next few steps are the same because, like I was saying earlier on, with everything that we're doing, we're deploying 3 web apps. So these are all just using built-in steps. And then lastly, I'm doing database deployment. With the database deployment, I'm just using deploy a package step. And this is actually using a Bastion box and doing a deployment to Azure SQL. Lastly, we've got printing out the URL. The main reason is I am lazy. And I like to just click things and they appear for me. So the next one is we actually also in steps 9 and 10, these only run for test because I want to destroy my infrastructure after I've ran my tests. So hopefully you'll see this may be a recurring theme in that we should have hopefully infrastructure. Oh, let's have a look. There we go. So the first step has ran. It has created infrastructure. Genuinely, no smoke and mirrors here. What this has happened, if we jump over, we can see in infrastructure, we now have 5 web apps. Sorry, 5 deployment targets. There we go. We've got a Bastion. We've got 3 web apps there as well. Random quotes is one I'll do later on, where I'll actually use a free tool that we've created to build your GitHub Actions workflow generator. Really should speak to marketing about that name. It's quite a lot of words. Okay, so let's see. Whilst that's happening, one of the things that, in this instance, the manual deployment, the manual intervention, I'm just going to deploy this straight to production as well. Okay. So whilst that's actually happening, let's jump in and have a look at the Runbooks. So Runbooks is something, honestly, it's one of my favourite features. I originate from Ops, and then suddenly people were saying, no Ops is going to be a thing. And I'm like, what's that? Oh no, you mean I'm going to lose my job? So I was like, right, I should probably start learning PowerShell. Still, to this day, I do not write great PowerShell. Most of my PowerShell is copied and pasted off the internet. Does anyone ever actually start a PowerShell script not from another one that you've already found? Who's crazy enough to start a PowerShell script by them, within an empty file? I see, there we go. No one. We're going to get on. We're going to go on. I have never started that. Actually, sometimes I write host, we be deploying. That's pretty much about the only PowerShell I can write without looking up some sort of reference. Okay, so what we've got here is the create infrastructure runbook. What this is basically doing is there's 10 steps. It's going to create the resource group. This is using PowerShell. The main reason is I've just got a loop, just making sure that it doesn't exist. I actually use a lot of built-in variables with Octopus. It's one of my favourite features. The main reason is who's using Azure and you've got potentially more than 1,000 resources, right? So how do you log on and understand what server is doing what? I've been there before and deleted the wrong server. But what I like is that there's things in Octopus. You've got there at the top left-hand corner is spaces. Spaces is something that allows you to separate out your deployment processes. Your different projects. I like using the space name, the project name, and then environment name is all of my naming conventions, because it means that when I'm deploying something, I can see exactly where it's coming from and where it's used. So the next few steps, what we're doing here is we're using ARM. Also, one thing that you can do is if you're super inspired by my talk today, you can actually come along to webinar.octopus.app. This is fully open. You can log on as a guest and you can copy and paste all this, much like I do every day. Okay, so what we're doing is we're binding this to an account. We've got some ARM templates. Unfortunately, with ARM, gets pretty detailed. As a general recommendation, start looking at Bicep. Bicep is going to make everybody happier. If I wrote this in Bicep, it would probably be about 20 lines. It's definitely something to check out. But what we're now doing is, the next few bits are very similar. We've got the ARM there, where we're going through, we're deploying an empty database. We're then creating the app service plan, then the shopping cart service and all that good stuff. And then lastly, towards the end, we're then registering everything in Octopus. Okay, so let's have a look. So at this point, what we've done is we've used GitHub Actions to build everything out. We've passed everything into Octopus. And then from this point is what we should have is a fully working deployment. And let's see if this works. There we go. Let's see. Yeah, hopefully soon. There we go. We have our dog, $100 for a dog. My last dog cost me £2,000. I'm still paying it up. It's like rent a dog. Anyway, so obviously you've got Octopayshop. This is all fully and then Octopus is Octopi for $250. Again, that seems cheap. So at this point, one of the things that you can do is I've got that manual intervention that I was showing you earlier on, and then what I'm now going to do is I'm going to say, yep, I can see that my test everything's been spun up. I'm going to take this, and I'm now just going to tear it down. And what all this, you'll notice earlier on, I had a destroy infrastructure runbook. What this is now going to do is run a runbook from another. It's going to run a runbook. It's kind of run a runbook. It's called run rabbit, run. Anyway, what this is doing now is going to run through and destroy all the infrastructure and then push everything into to production. Obviously, we've already deployed to production as part of this. This is just for today's talk. The main reason is you don't really want to watch that and then sit and watch everything go through production. But obviously, what you can do is you should probably deploy, test first, then production, rather than both at the same time. Okay, so what's now going to happen is this is going to tear everything down. We should see that in the infrastructure tab, that test should come down to 2. Okay, so let's close this off. So now what I'm going to do is, one sec, is we actually have a free tool that you can use. It's our GitHub Action Workflow Generator. What this will do is, let's actually jump in and have a look. What this is going to do is you can pop in your GitHub repository, and then if you hit go, what it's going to do is it's actually going to try and guess the type of the language that's being used. What you can do is just select one of the buttons at the bottom. This saves me so much time because I don't have to swear at my screen until I get point to check in 27 where it finally works. So what you can do, in this instance, I am now going to be doing a demo on random quotes. Random quotes is another sample application that we use, and it is written in .NET Core. So I'm just going to select .NET Core. Then I'm going to log into GitHub. What this is now going to do is it's going to inspect your repository, and then it's going to write a very opinionated GitHub action workflow for you. So in this instance, we're specifying to run this in Ubuntu. anyone else still a little bit weirded out about running .NET on Linux? Anyone? Just me then? Oh, there we go, we've got one at the back. So yeah, it's still, you know, it's a brand new world. So what this has done is it's actually went through and it's going to set up .NET Core. You'll probably find it looks a lot like the last one. Might have used the same tool for that. So what it's now going to do is it's going to go through, it's going to determine the version, it's going to use get version. 1 second, sorry. I'm going to install the dependencies again. Then it's going to list them out in a text file. It's going to collect this up. From here, it's then going to go through. We're going to do a .NET test. We're then going to publish it again. And then we're going to tag the release. And then from here, so we're then going to go through and we're going to create the release again. This one's a little bit quicker. So, I'm going to bring up VS Code. And then at this point, you will notice that there is no workflow. I'm going to select new file. I'm going to do main.yaml. And this is honestly, it's really, really nice because one of the things I like about this is it gives me it gives me all the power of YAML, but I don't have to spend days writing it. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to jump over. We're going to check in the source code. There we go. And then we're going to go add in a GitHub action. And then we're going to sync changes, pop that up. At this point, we're going to just come over, have a look. And there we go. So there's our workflow. You can see now exactly what I've just checked in. Now the question is it going to work? Come over to the action. This should already be running that newly created action. Jump in, have a look at build. There we go. So it's checked out the code. It's setting up .NET Core. It's going to install get version. It's going to determine the version. Then it's going to install the dependencies like I was showing you earlier on. And I have to say, do you know how much this is super fast? So how this works, this all runs in a container in the cloud. So you're never ever getting some old dodgy server that's sitting in in the back of some sysadmin cupboard and it's wheezing along. This generally takes normally about 60 seconds. At this point, as you can see, we're publishing. Then we're going to tag the release, create the release, and then we're pushing the packages to Octopus. Let's jump in, and what we should see is we come into library and then packages. So 1.0.27. That is accidental, but genuinely that is normally the number of times I have to check in to get this working. The problem is normally me, right? It's the squishy bit in between the keyboard and the chair. So we'll come on over to the dashboard. And as you can see, random quotes. This one is much more simpler. We jump into the process. What is now happening is we've just got a single web app, keeping it really nice and simple. Let's just see, back to the overview. Oh, and we're broke. Clearly did not. Yes, so helps when you actually you have a development environment. Well, let me just give you a second and get that fixed up for you. So from here, we'll come over now. Testing in production, eh? There we go. Okay, let's go for that again. Let's go back to the build. Whoops-a-daisy. Did I just say whoops-a-daisy? Sorry. There we go. We'll pretend like that never happened, right? So this is going to go run through that next 60 seconds. There we go. And now, what we should see is, because what it is I don't actually have a development environment. That's all this is. There we go. So with test, and I have already provisioned a web app. I'm not using Runbooks for this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to see that we have a random quotes test web. There we go. So we're still crossing our fingers, crossing our fingers. There we go. Running our tests. Come on, give me green, give me green. Whoops, right. There we go. Should be going through. It's creating the release, it's creating the release, it's pushing it to Octopus. I said 27, it's obviously now what, 28? There we go. And we're off. There we go. So yeah, it has now found the test environment which exists. Okay, so let's jump on over to Octopus. There we go. And let's pretend it's version 0.01. So at this point, all it's going to do is it's going to run my web app. Just go ahead, get that installed. So all this is going to do is grab that package and then upload it to the web app, and everything should be good. Fingers crossed. Excellent. These always are. See when you've got that spinning cycle, the sweat on your back, you're like, yeah, good times. Anyway, ta-da! We have quotes as a service. There you go. Every child is an artist. The problem is staying an artist when you grow up. That's kind of sad. Perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, when there is nothing left to take away. I like that. Design is so simple. That's why, well, yeah, I like that. So at this point, what I'm just going to do is just going to give you a quick demo of config as code. One of the cool things is with config as code is your entire deployment process is stored. And one thing just to do is press your dot. There we go. What we have now is VS Code in the cloud. So what you've got is, just one thing just to be aware of, is we do have our VS Code extension that you can use. And then from here, you can really just start, again, jump in. So obviously with Octopayshop, it is very detailed. It's a 10-step process. So you can see here, there's roughly 259 lines of code. So what you do is you come into Octopus Explorer, you can actually start seeing on the left-hand side, your step, the action, environments, notes, properties, what worker pool you're using. So automatically your scaffolding's in place. And what you can do is you can run through, and this is one of the benefits here, is you can treat your configuration of Octopus, and it is, one of the benefits is that you can do that in the UI and also in code. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do the super complicated things of putting 1, 2, 3. Actually, let's do this locally. So we'll come into Octopus, got your deployment process. For test, we're just going to change the name. There we go. Don't be like Derek and commit straight to main though, but I'm still going to do it. Test for NDC. Okay, check this in. Let me sync the changes. And then, there we go. At this point, what you should see is, let's go back to Octopayshop. Process. Let's jump into the process. And as you can see at the top here, you've actually got your branch switcher. So what you see, as you can see, that's already updated and what we're now going to do is we're actually going to come in. We're going to remove this. And then what you can see is just on the top right hand corner, you've got your commit. So you've got your quick commit. We're going to use your normal. So testing update. Okay, we're going to create it to branch name DevOps Derek patch 1 and then commit it. So at this point, what you're basically doing is you've created a branch of your deployment process. You can create releases, you can deploy it to dev, you can deploy it to test. And then once you know that this new process works for you, you can merge it. So at this point, what you're going to see is, let's go back to the main line. As you can see, we've still got our name of infrastructure for test 1, 2, 3. And then if you switch back to DevOps Derek, it's back to normal. So at this point, let's jump in. And then we're going to select Octopayshop, which I want, and then we're going to actually there we go. There we go. We've got DevOps Derek. I'm going to create the pull request. Create it. Merge. Confirm merge. At this point, what's going to happen is we're going to delete that branch because the next time I do this talk, I'll probably do the exact same thing. There we go, delete it. And then what we should see is we come back, main line branch should, oh, 1 second. And one of the things that you can do is obviously you can use things like branches, tags, and your commits as well. So that's just something to be aware of. You know, it's like once after a certain amount of time, it's quite hard to find. And there we go. So let's branches. Okay. Oh. Anyway, so at that point, obviously, what you've got is we've pulled that in. We've brought that into Octopayshop. You've used the same tools that you would use in your development to update your Octopus configuration. Okay. At this point, so as you've seen, obviously GitHub Actions is super powerful. It can do so many different things. You can use it with things like Ruby, and you can bring it in for you can use it to implement your standards across all of your different languages. What we've then done is we've ran through the GitHub Actions, we've run through our tests, we've generated our packages, we've pushed it into Octopus, we've used Runbooks to create your infrastructure as code. Then from that point, we've then deployed the application, the database, and actually one last thing I'm just going to do is I'm also going to just destroy all of my infrastructure. Mostly because so I don't get into trouble from finance when I actually haven't destroyed all my infrastructure and there's a large bill at the end of the month. And we'll take it down for production as well. And yeah, with random quotes, what we've also done is we've created a brand new GitHub Action workflow, and then we've pushed that through. Okay, so at that point, is there any questions? Yay, here we go.
Can you prevent branches being promoted through the phases of the life cycle? Because obviously you probably don't want your feature branches going past dev.
Yeah, that's something that we're working on just now. You've got things like branch protection, but it's definitely something this is just the first version of it. So we've got that, it's working, we're taking on some feedback. I believe we spoke to you about some of the upcoming features as well. So with that, this is just the first version of it. There will be more. So over the next wee while, we're going to be adding things like variables. We're working with a lot of our customers just now to really kind of find out more about how they're going to use it, and then once we get that feedback, it's almost like Christian heard the question, and then once we get that feedback, we'll hopefully improve the feature. Any others? Yes.
So if we want to say create separate environments or separate deploys for different branches, so say we've got several developers working with different feature branches, they all want to deploy to a development environment, but it'll be individual deploys to feature branches. Does Octopus support something like that?
It's actually something that we're looking to develop just now. It's called dynamic environments. You can use tenancy to shape that just now. It's not a fully featured thing just now, but yeah, it's actually something that we're in discovery mode at the moment, and we're hoping to start working on, because when you do, that would be the perfect thing, right? So yeah, but there's ways there just now, but it's not first class. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for attending. I hope you learned something cool today. If obviously you haven't been around by the stand, swing by. There's lots of chocolates. I'm a diabetic, so you're probably doing me a favour by eating some of the chocolates. There's some hats and whatnot. But yeah, if you're on Twitter and you're not offended by following me, please do.